In the words of Arthur Smith, that's fucking bullshit. Falcons lose 48-17. Art pops off against Dennis Allen, which it was BS of the Saints to line up for a knee and then run it in for a touchdown. But if you haven't seen the clip already, Arthur Smith going up to Dennis Allen at the end of the game saying that's fucking bullshit. Dennis Allen, after the game, spoke to the media and said Arthur Smith has every right to be upset. He's right. But in the moment, I looked at that and I'm like, that's a guy who's upset because he knows that he probably just lost his job as the Saints ran all over the Falcons, 48-17. Close start, but not a close second half. So we're talking Arthur Smith replacements because Adam Schefter put out a bombshell article over the weekend, and it said Arthur Smith could really go either way. But there are people in Atlanta that believe Arthur Blank, who is getting up in the age column, might get a little bit antsy and might want a new head coach after a third straight losing season from Art. Now, I want to know from you, before we get into my Arthur Smith replacements, do you want Arthur Smith to return in 2024? I don't think Arthur Smith is as bad as other people make him out to be. I'm not going to lead fire Arthur Smith chance, but I can also recognize 3 straight losing seasons, inability to find a quarterback, which that's not 100% on him, but he had a hand in Desmond Ridder, and, you factor in no playoffs since 2017. Yeah, Arthur Blank might want a change. So let's run through my 5 Arthur Smith replacements. Personally, by the way, I don't think he's going to get fired still. I think they're going to hold on to him. But number 5 is DC Brian Flores. So he is the Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator. Of course, we know him more for being the Miami Dolphins head coach, where he went 24-25. He actually got fired after having a winning season, had back-to-back winning seasons in Miami. He was a long-time New England Patriots coach, so everyone's kind of on the Bill Belichick coaching tree right now, but even that's not looking too hot. However, the job Brian Flores has done in Minnesota this year has been nothing short of a Minnesota miracle for Purple People Eaters. The Vikings defense this year compared to last year, giving up 5 points fewer a game, total yards down by 50, sacks up, takeaways down, but I think the thing with takeaways and sacks is they're great. However, if you're on the field for much longer because you're giving up first downs, you're not going to have as many opportunities, or you're going to have more opportunities to get those takeaways and sacks compared to a Brian Flores defense that gets off the field a lot quicker. Ultimately, Flores mishandled the entire Tua situation, and he comes out of that relationship looking like the bad guy because he wanted to move on from Tua. He wanted Deshaun Watson. He wanted a new quarterback. Miami wanted to stick with Tua. They picked their quarterback over their coach, and that's looking pretty good for the Dolphins right now. It looks like they definitely made the right decision, but I can tell you this much. Brian Flores, his players played hard for him. I don't think the Dolphins would lose the last 2 games of the season with their coach's job hanging on by a thread by over 3 scores like they did in Chicago and New Orleans. So you could say a lot of things about Brian Flores. He's a defensive-minded guy. I know it's a bit of a turnoff in 2024, and he did not handle the Tua situation very well, but he is a coach that his players play super hard for. So give him a roster where he does not have to make a decision as a for the quarterback, which it's a big decision for the Falcons to make this offseason, and he is a good coach. But make him the head coach of a team that needs to find a new quarterback, I don't think he's your guy. That's why I have him at number 5. Number 4, Houston Texans offensive coordinator Bobby Slowik. Not a household name, especially coming into this year. Just his first year as the Texans OC. You know how every single head coaching cycle, there is a next Sean McVay. For a while, it was Kellen Moore. Before that, it was Shanahan. Everyone's always looking for the next young hotshot OC. That might be Bobby Slowik. He has done a tremendous job with C.J. Stroud, who looks to be the offensive rookie of the year winner. He just won a playoff game in Indianapolis in my eyes. However, I have some concerns over Bobby Slowik. He is 36 years old, and he's got 1 year of being a play caller. Don't you think we might be getting ahead of our skis just a little bit by making him your head coach? Now, it's worked out sometimes before, right? I would say it worked out well with Sean McVay. Worked out well with Kyle Shanahan. But you also have examples of it not working out super duper well when you hire an under 40-year-old offensive coordinator. Can't think of one off the top of my head. Oh, yeah, Arthur Smith might be one that comes to mind. So it's not always a guarantee. Young, hotshot OC, boom, we got the next Sean McVay. It's not that simple. Now, before we get on to the rest of today's video, I do want to highlight our sponsor, which is Prize Picks. Thanks to Prize Picks, I've had an absolute blast watching football all season long, and now I'm winning up to 25 times my money this season watching basketball as well. Now, here's how Prize Picks works. You just select 2 or more players, then pick more or less on their projected stats and place your entry and watch the winnings roll in. So let me give you a bit of an example of what it looks like. Take Sunday Night Football. Tua Tagovailoa has 267.5 passing yards against the Bills as his stat projection. You want to go with the more or the less? 267.5 for Tua seems like a bit on the lower side for how good he has been this year. I'll take the more for Tua. And Brian Flores, if he was coaching, it would probably be the less. So go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. I put that link in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Arthur Smith replacement number 3, defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo. This is not going to give me a lot of points in the comment section. And this is kind of the point I want to make here. There are not a lot of great candidates in this pool. Like, Lou Anarumo is your safe, it's an infield single, moves the base runner along kind of hire, right? He's been the Bengals DC since 2019. He's been an NFL coach since 2012. He was in college football for a long time before that, specifically with Purdue. But he's a bit on the older side. He's not your young, hotshot OC, turns 58 in August. This is a safe, but albeit not a very sexy hire. And that's why I have some concerns over firing Arthur Smith. I apply this rule to college and the NFL. If you want to fire your coach, you damn sure better have a better option. I'm not interested in firing coaches and then going, all right, let's huddle up here. Who do we want to get? You better have a pretty good plan in place as to who out there you could go hire that would do a better job. And there might be 1 or 2 guys, but the Falcons might not be at the top of their wish list of teams they would like to go to. And that's something to factor in. Now, what kind of coach do you prefer here? Offense or defense? I personally think this question is the most overblown question amongst fans and whatnot. You don't get to be an NFL head coach without knowing how the other side of the football works. For starters, a lot of these coaches coached both sides of the ball. I love when people go, you hire a defensive-minded coach, they don't know how the offense works now. You think they got to the NFL without knowing what a quarterback looks like? No. I think this is one of the most silliest questions we ask when we're talking about head coaching candidates. Number 2, Frank Smith, offensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins. He's kind of like Bobby Slowik in terms of the, hey, up-and-coming, unknown, young, hotshot OC. But I like Frank Smith a lot more than Bobby Slowik. He's in his second year as the Dolphins offensive coordinator, so a wee bit more experience, but not a ton, right? Now, before that, various NFL coaching jobs with the Saints, the Bears, the Raiders, the Chargers, and he's also a disciple of the almighty Kyle Shanahan coaching tree, which means you're going to have some fun run play, some fun run designs. And when you've got Bijan Robinson in your backfield, hiring a coach that knows how to use Bijan to the best of his abilities might be something that moves you up Arthur Blank's list. Now, I also want to highlight what Frank Smith and Mike McDaniel have been able to do with Tua Tagovailoa, in contrast to what Brian Flores did. Because Tua, since Frank Smith and McDaniel came over, 67% completion percentage, yards are dramatically up, games are up for sure, that factors in, but 53 touchdowns, 20 interceptions, his rating is way up. I mean, there is no mistake here that Tua Tagovailoa has benefited greatly from having McDaniel, but I'll also toss in Frank Smith joining that coaching staff. I know all the credit goes to McDaniel right now, but keep an eye on Frank Smith. He's going to be a popular name this coaching cycle. Might not get a job this year, but he's definitely in line for a job soon. He is the sleeper of this pool, and he's someone that I definitely have my eyes on. He also has done a tremendous job with the ground game. Again, it's tough to know whose fingerprints are on what in Miami between Smith and McDaniel. I lean towards McDaniel, but Raheem Mostert was a nobody. He was a 49ers third-string running back. Then he goes to Miami, and in the last 2 seasons, he's got 1,900 yards and 21 touchdowns. A nobody to getting nearly 1,000-yard seasons in back-to-back years if he goes over 97 yards tonight against the Buffalo Bills. I'm a big fan of Frank Smith as a head coaching candidate. The number one belle of the ball, though, is Ben Johnson, right? Everyone has their eyes on Ben Johnson. He is the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator, his second year as the OC in that position. We can look at some of the background information on him. Before being the offensive coordinator, he was the Dolphins and Lions offensive position coaches from 2012 to 2021. So he's not some spring chicken. He's got a lot of experience in the league. And I also like that he's got 2 years of being a play caller under his belt. He's 38 years old, or he will be in May, which I think off the top of my head, that's the exact age Arthur Smith was when the Falcons hired him. So if you're weary about him being too young, they just did that with Arthur Smith, and you can see how that turned out. So there's pros and cons to both sides. It's not a one-size-fit-all. But I can tell you this much. What he's done with Detroit's offense is nothing short than a miracle in the Motor City. Because the Lions have the number 5 scoring offense since he took over as the play caller. This is a good company to be in. Cowboys, Niners, Eagles, Bills. You resurrected Jared Goff's career. Ben Johnson is going to be the hottest name across every team looking for a head coach. So you got to ask yourself, and you got to look in the mirror. Arthur Blank, are the Atlanta Falcons a 1 or 2, maybe even 3 head coaching job for all the vacancies that are going to come? We've already got the Panthers, Chargers, and Raiders. I'm going to say the Chargers job is probably number 1 with Justin Herbert. You got the hard part out of the way. You already have your franchise quarterback. The Raiders being in Las Vegas is always going to be tempting for a lot of personnel. The Panthers is the worst job. No one wants to touch that job with a 10-foot pole. But we'll see what other jobs pop up and where the Falcons rank in between there. And if Atlanta feels like they can get Ben Johnson, they can tell Ben Johnson, hey, we just lost. What is the updated draft order off the top of my head here? Let's see if Tankathon has it updated. They do. The Falcons have the number 8 pick at this current moment as I'm filming during the beginning of the 3:30 game. So you tell Ben Johnson, you got Bijan, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and the number 8 pick to go get close to any quarterback you want, minus Caleb Williams and or Drake May going 1 or 2. You could get Jaden Daniels potentially or Michael Penix. If he's on board with that, he could be your guy. So who do you want to hire? One name I did not include on that list was Eric Bieniemy. I'm not a fan of Eric Bieniemy. I think there is a reason why he has done a lot of interviews with a lot of teams and no one has hired him. There's not a witch hunt out there to screw over Eric Bieniemy from the NFL. I don't believe that. So when multiple teams have interviewed him and multiple teams have passed on him and he's got a checkered past at best, I think there's a reason why no one is barking up that tree. I'm not interested in Eric Bieniemy. That's going to do it for us on today's show. We'll wait and see whether or not Arthur Smith survives Black Monday tomorrow. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already, and we will see you guys later.